Bless up, guys. Yannick Reed here, and welcome back to a One Par podcast. This is episode 4. Can you believe it? We've made it to episode 4. You don't know, big ups always in order. Thank you to everybody locally and overseas who's listening and giving the podcast a support. I appreciate you always. So we're going to dive right in with some quick updates, some quick housekeeping. Obviously, I want to plug my OG, Protoje. He released his latest album, The Art of Acceptance. I would personally recommend that you go and check it out. It's one of my favorite projects from his. I think it's a really solid body of work. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it. And as you may or may not know, I'm Protoje's creative director. So I played a medium-sized role in this album, in the art direction of the album cover and the album back. It was photographed by a guy from Ethiopia, G-Box. His name is pronounced Germa Bert, I believe. And those photos were reinterpreted by Jamaican painter Chanel Davis. And they did excellently on that. We did the CDs, we did the vinyls, more stuff to come. But more importantly, is the music. Go and check it out. I think it's a strong body of work, a great listen, and you don't know, just big up to Protoje on that release. Again, this is episode 4. Can you believe it? I always said I wanted to make it through 3 episodes, just so you guys can, get an idea, get comfortable of what the idea is, because the podcast is called a One Par. It's primarily me and you hanging out. So this podcast will primarily be me alone talking to you and us reasoning. But there's still the possibility of guests. I'm definitely open to having guests on the podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast, you can hop over to Spotify or on YouTube, or hop on Instagram. You can follow at a One Par podcast, or check me at the Therapist SOL, and let me know some guests that you would like to see on the podcast. I really want to know who you want to see me hold a reasoning with and get into some niche topics with. Please don't spam Protoje, because obviously I know you guys are going to want to see Protoje, but let's just get creative. Some people other than Protoje, obviously. So I'm looking forward to hearing what guests you guys would like on a One Par podcast. I don't want you to expect a guest every episode, but we're going to have some guests and hold some reasonings with them. Yeah? Cool. I want to dive into a quick cliff notes before we dive into our main topic for the podcast. If you guys didn't know, this podcast is happening shortly after, like a week or so after Carnival in Jamaica. And I am a member of a carnival band in Jamaica already. So I'm not in a position where I can speak honestly or unbiasedly about everything. I'll skip doing that. But overall, I'm happy to see the growth of Jamaica Carnival. Carnival brings so much revenue into Jamaica across the board, from promoters to hair salons to photographers to cinematographers to the people who pan chicken man, truck man, street sweeper, hotels. It just brings in so much revenue into the island, and that always makes me feel good, because, people are earning. It puts people in a better position, as well as, it increases tourism into the island. And it's definitely at a point where it is undisputable that Jamaica Carnival is a product that is very important to the Jamaican economy. And I think all of us, or all Jamaicans, or anyone who loves Jamaica, should have a mindset in support of Jamaica Carnival, because it's good for the economy and it's good for the ecosystem. There's 2 quick takes I want to make about Carnival, because in years past, there's always this topic of why can't we have a dancehall carnival? And I want to speak to that really quickly. For lovers of dancehall, the dancehall road march that you guys are asking for, is Jamaica Carnival, It is. And what I mean when I say that is Jamaica Carnival does not look like any other carnival in the Caribbean. Our carnival is the fusion of soca and dancehall. So while I am aware that there is a dancehall carnival that is like straight dancehall, it's more of a grassroots project. Wish them the best. But in terms of the whole infrastructure, what's being built around Jamaica Carnival, the unique proposition or what makes Jamaica Carnival unique is the presence of dancehall. And I would say this year, dancehall was very much so a part of Jamaica Carnival, and I'd say a welcome part of Jamaica Carnival. And I'm glad to see it being incorporated because that is what we have to offer. For lovers of soca, Jamaica Carnival will never and should never be Trinidad Carnival. It is two different products, it's two different economies, it's two different cultures. I know one can want to have this a similar feeling to Trinidad Carnival because I can admit that Trinidad Carnival has a stronger impact on me than Jamaica Carnival. But Jamaica's Carnival's unique proposition is a carnival that incorporates soca and dancehall. So, if you go to Barbados, you have bashment. If you go to Grenada and Vincy, it's going to be bouillon and jab. Jamaica's unique offering to the carnival space is dancehall. And people who are touring the Caribbean or who are choosing to go to different carnivals throughout the Caribbean, they are not going to want to come to Jamaica to just get a lesser version of what they got in Trinidad. The difference in the experience, one, obviously it being Jamaica, but just how dancehall is incorporated in the overall carnival. So I think as long as, even though you may want something as a soca purist, I think if you're a soca purist, you probably would have to focus your budget on going to the home of soca. But I just don't think soca purism in terms of our road march, in terms of what we're offering, because it's bigger than any individual. It is an economic offering. You know what I mean? We can't compare it to Trinidad, so it don't make sense to try and create a product that is just a lesser version of Trinidad. Dancehall is what's here. We have to celebrate it and we have to just try and play it together with the soca. And as many other people have said, there are trucks and every band that will play soca only. So there's always an option to get your ideal experience throughout the band. That, and we're definitely going to have to do something about the Stormers. That's one thing I heard from every single band. But overall, glad Jamaica Carnival keep. Wish I was in a position to say everything that I want to say, but the tribalism when it comes to the bands in Carnival Jamaica is very intense, and I don't really like to participate in tribalism generally, so I will just save my comments for off air. All right, so hopping off a Carnival, knowing that, Carnival is finished, we're in a very unique part of the year in Jamaica, end of April going into summer. So where a lot of brands are cooling off of a lot of high spending Carnival, a lot of people cooling off from February in reggae month. So I usually find this to be a quiet period of sorts as, people kind of recover, get back into their light nickel routines, and then kind of prepare for the long summer. So when I was kind of thinking about that, I thought it would be a good time to just talk about creatives, and what creatives do in that time. And I think a topic that I've had on my shortlist for some time is talking about creatives, especially creatives in Jamaica, and their relationship with communication, especially communication in a professional manner. Jamaican creatives are a group that often don't get the respect that they deserve. And that is a whole topic unto itself that can be a podcast episode by itself. But what I wanted to speak about is just the issues in terms of communication that I see that we're having. I think our style of communication has allowed us to be taken advantage of. And I'm speaking as a fellow creative working in this industry for over 20 years, as well as someone who hires other creatives for the greater part of 10 years. I can admit I'm not perfect at communication. I'm not perfect at anything. But a lot of younger creatives will approach me and ask me for advice on how to operate and how to move in the Jamaican space. And one of the first things that always kind of comes to my mind is just our collective issues in communication. And you can tell me if it makes sense or not. So if there was like a summary of how I see creatives operate, I would say we communicate well when things are going well, and we don't communicate when things aren't going well. And the irony about that is communication is its most important when things aren't going well. You know what I mean? Like, that is when it matters the most. So creatives, they can be a very emotional species, and that affects how we approach work because, a lot of young creatives or creatives, they enter the industry, with their hearts on their sleeves, especially as it pertains to their work. You know what I mean? Their value and their work is tied up together. So it's hard for them to kind of separate the task and themselves. So it's usually one and the same. So how they feel about the task is how they feel about themselves. So with that emotional tie to our work and our value, I find that a lot of younger creatives, they communicate with an excitement. It's like, oh, yo, I'm so excited about the work. The pictures look so sick. I can't wait, all of this stuff. And excitement and exuberance is important. It's what helps to fuel our creativity and our enthusiasm for the project. And creativity definitely requires a level of enthusiasm. But I think sometimes it gets confused because we communicate in a way like we want to be liked, or we're communicating like we're talking to our friends, or we're communicating like we are trying to build our vibes. And I would say that communication, especially as it pertains to a professional sense in a work environment, is communication. It's not about being liked. It's not about being liked by the client. It's not about being friends with the client. Obviously, being liked by your client and having a positive relationship with your client is a great pro, but the function is not like, oh, I'm catching up with a friend. It is a collaborative process that helps two or more parties stay on the same page. So it is a functional aspect of the work. I will have to understand that bridge, that collaboration, it's not all about you. It's not all about me, the creative, making what I want. It's not about that all the time. Less of the time, it's what, especially if it is a trade of services. You are trading a service to be compensated in whichever way you're to be compensated, but it's a trade. So there should be equity. So it's not just about you. It's about collaboration. It's about making sure you hit the target, as well as honoring the trust that your client puts in you. Because, when you're being hired to perform a service or something, a client is essentially saying, I'm trusting you to do this service. So you also have to communicate in a way that honors that trust. Like, wow, this person trusts me to do this project, I need to make sure I give it the respect that it deserves. So, an example. You underestimated the turnaround time for a project, and you see the deadline quickly approaching, and you're not finished. And this is where I see creatives is like they just go ghost. They ghost the client. Them see the deadline coming up, them realize they're not going to finish in time. Client starts to reach out and ask some questions. The client, the creative, they go ghost. And that's like the worst thing you can do. I would say at the very moment you are looking at the timeline, you're looking at your work and you're saying, I'm not going to finish this on time, you know. You reach out to the client, you say, hey, John Public, I know we had agreed to Monday afternoon, but I'm working as fast as I can on this project and I'm trying to handle it at the best level that I want it to be. But I don't think we're going to hit that deadline. I think realistically we'll probably be able to hit somewhere between Wednesday morning and Wednesday afternoon. I know that's a little behind what we had agreed upon, but let me know how this works for you or how we can come to a solution. So when you communicate in this manner, right, you're doing 4 things. You're acknowledging the original agreement, because you have to acknowledge, say, I agreed to Monday. You're communicating the challenges, saying, I'm working as fast as I can, but I don't think I'll make it. And you also propose a solution. So you don't just say, John Star, I'm not going to make it. You say, okay, I'm not going to make the Monday deadline. Here is a new deadline that I think I can honor. And then another important thing after number 4 is that you ask the client for their feedback, because it is a collaboration. So while you may say, all right, I can deliver it Wednesday afternoon, maybe the client will push back and say, all right, is there any way we can get it first thing Wednesday morning, or even if you can finish it by Tuesday night? Because it's a collaboration, so you cannot be the only person to dictate what the new deadline is. And you have to be open to that feedback. You have to be open to knowing that I've held myself accountable in knowing that I'm going to miss a deadline. And I have to also be flexible in, if the client accepts that I'm going to miss this deadline, I have to accept that, all right, the client is working with me for a new deadline, so I have to be flexible. Maybe my comfort zone is Wednesday afternoon, but the client really needs it latest Tuesday night. So I've already established that Monday is out the window, and we're going to try and do our best to honor Tuesday afternoon. And this is just operating professionally. This is just operating professionally. I have seen where so many creatives get themselves worked up, like they get themselves worked up over this anxiety that they're going to get cussed out by their clients. And it's just funny that ironically, the thing that enrages clients more, and I've heard this first time, and I've heard this as well as I have experienced it since I hire creatives. Ghosting is much more infuriating than you letting me know in advance that we won't meet that deadline. Because most professional clients or most senior clients who are working in a creative field, no matter the medium, they know that there is room for error. You know, you plan and things will happen. So it is not a brand new concept for someone to come back and say, hey, we're running a little late. But when you ghost the client now, all the client can do is assume that, boy, I guess we're on time from Monday. I haven't heard from Yannick. But Yannick is one side panicking, not going to deliver on Monday. Monday comes, no Yannick, no work. This is now where you screw over the client. The client is screwed over. Because what if you were to expect someone to deliver something? Amazon, the pizza man, say, I'm going to be here by 5 p.m. And you make all your plans around the delivery being made at 5 p.m. And from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., you don't hear anything from the pizza man. You hear nothing. Wouldn't you be upset? But if a delivery person calls you at 3 and say, hey, man, or even 4 and say, yo, I know I was supposed to deliver at 5. I'm running a bit late. It's looking like 6. Isn't that much more convenient than them just ghosting you, because then now you can say, all right, maybe I can do something in the meantime while I wait on 6. And that's the same thing a client needs. A client has the opportunity now to adjust based on the delay. When you communicate with them, they can adjust on their end, because sometimes it's not just, maybe your client is Ashley Brown or whoever. Ashley Brown may have a boss who she has to deliver the work to. So when she can tell her boss, hey, I think we're running a little bit late, you save Ashley from looking like a fool on Monday morning in the meeting when Yannick Reid ghosted her and didn't deliver on what Yannick Reid said he would. So when you communicate, especially when things aren't going well, you give your client the opportunity to adjust and plan and collaborate with you and problem solve with you, instead of you just freezing over one side by yourself. So when we don't do these things, this definitely affects how clients perceive, not just you, but creatives on a whole. And I hope I'm not coming across like I'm only siding with the client. I'm kind of acting in a big bro role right now, because I always get these questions about how to operate and how to move in a professional sense as a creative, or how to improve one's business. And while I'm no expert, there are some common things that I see amongst our community. Communication is definitely one of them. There is no shortage of talent. There's so many people who are really talented. But it's funny. Someone will quickly or quicker talk about a terrible experience that they had than a positive experience. And that's just how the business world works. You know, if someone hires Yannick Reid, and I ghost them, or I'm always stringing them along in terms of, okay, when can we get it? And I tell them Monday. Monday comes, they don't get it. Tuesday comes, they don't get it. Wednesday comes, they don't get it. They don't hear anything from me. These are things that frustrate clients. And these are the things that make people want to complain. Frustrated people are powered to complain. Yo, I can't take working with Yannick, man. He just doesn't communicate, and it's just whack. It's just totally unprofessional. I can't tell if Yannick tells me something, I don't know if he's gonna deliver on time. I don't know if he's gonna honor it, and I just can't take it anymore. You could be the greatest editor, you could be the greatest vocalist, you could be the greatest poet or chef. Those things operating unprofessionally, those things put people in situations where they're like, never again. Your reputation, it moves further and faster than you do. And I'm definitely speaking from experiences, because I have been offered jobs from other creatives that I hesitate to take because I don't like that style, where a client is so frustrated with dealing with another creative because their communication and their follow-up is so poor. And a lot of times behind the scenes, I have to beg for people and say, give them another chance or whatever. And I said, it would be good that I use this platform that we talk about creativity, especially in Jamaica, to let people know, don't just be focusing on the special effects and the camera and the vocals and this chain machine and all of these things. A lot of times, especially in my experience, a client will work with somebody who is less talented but more reliable than someone who is extremely talented and not reliable. Because if there is a deadline and talent misses the deadline, that talent is useless. But if there's a deadline and reliability hits that deadline and you know what to expect, even if it's not number 1, 2, or 3, at least everybody's on the same page and people can deliver what they promised. You deliver to your client delivers to their board of directors, their clients, the wedding couple or whatever. You know what it is. Creativity is a chain of command. It's not just about you. And I'd say the worst thing is to have a bad reputation because of your communication. I always like to say to my business partner, don't out yourself on a technicality. Not talking to him, but I always just say it. Don't out yourself on a technicality. And what that means is, like when you're playing a sport or something and you out yourself not because you actually lost, like you did your best and lost, but maybe you step out of bounds or you get a red card or something like that. Those things frustrating because it's not like you really lose. And that's what I mean when I think communication is one of those things that it's not easy, but it's so easy to address because it's based on habit. It's totally something that is within your control. So it's like, why have a terrible reputation because you didn't answer a message, you couldn't tell a client that we're over budget, all of these things. These are things that you should be able to do if you are going through and saying, I am operating a business. A client can be terrible and wrong in so many ways, but you out yourself on a technicality. Yes, you needed more time, but did you ask for it? It was too much work for one person to do. Fair, but from you saw the workload, did you say something about it? So communicating in business, it's not a favor you're doing to your client. And sometimes that's like the attitude that I get from people, like, oh, da 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 da, or oh, I'll communicate others. It's not a favor. It is just a part of what is your responsibility once you agree to a project or you agree to an agreement, is that you're supposed to communicate. And mind you, things don't automatically go right because you communicated. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that communication is the silver bullet and once you communicate, everything is perfect. No, that's not true. But another thing that communication does do is it leaves a paper trail of accountability. And God forbid, one day you might get sued or you and a client fall out and they want to drape you up in front of them boss or you have a mutual or maybe it's two persons in a department and on a boss saying, yo, what happened? When you communicate, whether things are going good or going bad, you leave a paper trail of accountability. And the thing about the accountability is that everything I'm saying to you, everything I'm saying to creatives about communication, you are entitled to the exact same thing from your client or whoever you're working with. They are supposed to communicate with you as well. If you find out the project requires a larger budget, there's evidence that you communicated that, hey, on looking on the scope of work, I've established that this project is actually going to need at least a 15% budget increase for us to meet our target. The client didn't supply me with the needed assets. You communicated that. You said, hey, I'm going to need your logo as a PNG. I'm going to need the dimensions for the poster. I'm going to need the dimensions for the flyer. I'm going to need the dimensions for the banner. I'm also going to need to make sure that I have the proper accreditation to enter the stadium. You communicated all of those. So now when there's evidence that you communicated that, and if somebody doesn't answer that or doesn't give it to you, you say, hey, I let you know that I needed these things and you didn't supply them. So, things that we're entitled to payment timelines. We're entitled to the scope of work. You definitely have a right to know how much work you are expected to do before you start. You're entitled to a project timeline. You're entitled to any changes in the brief or scope. Because if there are changes in the brief or scope, you have a right to say yes or no to them. Again, you also have a right for the client to provide you with the necessary assets to do the job. If Nikon hires you to make some graphics and Nikon needs the Nikon logo on those graphics, if they don't supply you with the logo, then that's on them. Yes, some people can go online and find the logo, but it is the client's responsibility to provide that to you. That's their job of communicating with you. And most importantly, when you don't receive these communications or you don't receive these assets and you don't get these things, you are allowed to say so. Hey, the fact that I didn't get these specs or these assets or I didn't get the accreditation definitely impacted my ability to do the job. And it definitely has resulted in a compromising of the final product, which I don't think I should be penalized for, as there's evidence of me requesting them. You see how communication is working in your defense and in your support? And as I say, you're still going to have some clients who are going to be like, no, or whatever, or not take any accountability. And what I like to believe is two things. One, true characters, they repeat themselves. Meaning, if a terrible client is a terrible client, it will prove itself to other people. Other people will find out that that is a terrible client. Sometimes no, but most times I like to believe that. And I also like to focus on the strength of my reputation, and you should focus on the strength of your reputation. So if someone says, hey, yo, Yannick ghosted me in the middle of the project, someone must say, that sounds very unusual. That sounds very unlike Yannick. Because your reputation, it moves faster than you and it speaks for you when you're not in the room. That don't sound right, so it's almost more like your reputation is so strong, it can defend when someone tries to besmirch. So I try to focus on my reputation, as well as I try to act in good faith with all of the jobs that I do. And good faith means that I do my best and I try to close the job and close my eyes knowing that I did the best that I could, and whether success or failure, I did the best that I could. If I feel bad if I don't feel like I acted in good faith or did the best that I could. So if I communicate with a client and say, hey, I need accreditation to go into the stadium, and the client doesn't give me the accreditation, if I try to go in the stadium and I am unsuccessful and thing, or I just capture what I can capture from where I capture, I'm still gonna ask for what I charged, because the only reason that I was not able to perform my duties to spec is because you didn't supply me with what I needed. So whether they lie on me or whatever, somebody will come to me and say, hey, Yannick, them say, you never got the stadium. And I said, well, they didn't provide me with the accreditation, And sometimes it's going to just be your word against theirs. But somebody else may go work with that client or work alongside that client and realize, Yannick did tell me, say, this brother difficult. Because I ask him for the accreditation, and I just remember how Yannick tell me, say, the man never gave him the accreditation. So that's kind of like how I operate. People who want to act like that, they will reveal themselves, but I will always make sure that I won't be outed on a technicality that I didn't communicate, that I didn't honor what I agreed to, and everybody knew what was going on. As I like to say, from problem reach, me a ball out. Me I say, hey, there's a problem here, so that everybody's aware. I don't try to, obviously I'm going to try and solve problems, but I don't try to leave the client out of the problem solving process, because sometimes a client may say, oh, wait, you need an accreditation? Oh, go over to this office and just tell them your name and I'll make sure that it's there for you. So that is how we work together towards the goal. I also just want to remind people that these are just some of the things that you have to take on when you're saying to yourself you're going to run a business. Because remember, say, businesses aren't favors. And you can't take everything personally, and you can't approach everything like it is a personal thing. It's a business problem. And again, like I was mentioning, creatives and how they're so tied up in the feeling and emotion and just what their work represents, they lose some ground on what they need to do professionally. And I find a lot of creatives develop this anxiety around communicating because I see this common denominator where a lot of creatives see communication as confrontation because, again, they're only communicating when it's nice and it feels good. But when problems arise, that's where there's difficulty communicating because they're only used to communicating in this happy-go-lucky fashion. When you practice communicating, when you practice it over and over, it starts to feel less like confrontation and it starts to feel more like collaboration. When you just have a habit of saying, boy, I know we had agreed on this deadline yesterday, but I really gave it some thought overnight, and there are just some things that popped up in my mind where I'm not 100% sure if we're going to meet it. We can renegotiate it because it's two people. You always have to say to yourself, we're a group of people, we're a group of adults, we're a group of people doing business, and it's not personal. So any problems that you feel like you're having, you should be able to raise them to say, okay, what is the best approach we can take to meet the goal? So in closing, I'll just go and do a little quick speed run off of the list here. So my quick advice to creatives, if you don't take anything from this whole podcast, here what you need to do. Answer your phone. You know what I mean? Answer your phone. Make a habit of answering your phone. And it's fine if you don't answer your phone, because I know that there are some clients who can really call incessantly or just call at some very inopportune times. But I would recommend that you have business hours. Let clients know that you have business hours. Even if you don't work a 9 to 5, you're allowed to set your business hours. You run your business. So you let your client know what are the ideal times to contact you and the methods to contact you within those hours. And if you miss a call or whatever, call the client back. You know what I mean? Call them back. Don't just say a missed call and leave it. Call them back and find out what it is that they needed. If something goes wrong, just talk up early. Early. Don't just voice a problem. Try to present a solution. Hey, I'm running 15 minutes late to the stadium. I'm moving as quickly as possible. I'm gonna try and park somewhere quickly, hop into the stadium, get those first images, and then I'll go back out and park and get back in when I'm more settled. Or, I know I said Monday, but can you give me until Tuesday evening? So you're giving people something to work with as opposed to, I don't think I'm going to make Saturday, That's just when you sound like a picnic. You sound like a child, not someone who's doing business. If an email or a text fails, you're communicating something and for whatever reason, you're not getting through via email, you're not getting through to a text, or it just feels hard to articulate through the email or text, pick up the phone and call the person. Yo, Andre, I got level with you, I don't think I'm going to make this deadline for Saturday, Yo, we can just kind of talk about how we can work something out or just what can go on. I think I just need 2 more days, bro. And then maybe whatever you say I have on the call, you just put it in an email after. But if maybe speaking is something a little bit easier for you to do, I'm sure most clients will appreciate you just take up the phone, you level with them in natural language, and then you use the speaky spokey on the email after. Obviously, if something is not working, just say so. Just say so. It is okay to say no to something you can't do or something you don't want to do. You also should not say yes to something that you can't do or don't want to do. That creates a situation that's uncomfortable for you and uncomfortable for the client. People can pressure you, it's just business. You can't go into Fontana Pharmacy and go up to the cashier and say, I go take that pen for free. Me need that pen. And they say, well, you can have that pen for $100. No, $50. You know what I mean? Same way, so you are operating this business, and if somebody's like, I need 100 pictures for 50 Jamaican dollars, you can say no. And after you have said no, you don't even have to respond anymore. You've said no. I've communicated sufficiently my stance on this. No more. Don't ghost anyone you have made an agreement with. Ghosting people professionally is not a good look. It's not a good look. Please stop doing that. And just don't promise your client anything that you don't plan to honor. If you tell somebody you're going to call them back in an hour, call them back in an hour. If you say I'm going to call you back later, call them back later. If you said, okay, I'll give you an update on Tuesday, if the update is still not a good update, at least they can know on Tuesday, they will have an idea of what's going on. So that was my overall rant, you know what I mean? Just giving back to the creative community. I know it might be tough for some people, but that's just one of the biggest problems I have seen and heard from creatives, from clients, from musicians, corporate people, is that our community is not communicating properly. And again, these are some of the things that make people can just disrespect us, because there's also something in a way cowardly when you cannot stand up for yourself professionally. And I'm just leveling and being honest. There is an amount of cowardice. And that's important, because if you are displaying even things like cowardice and just an inability to stand up for yourself, people will use that as a way to take advantage of you and liberty of you. You know, that you are not strong enough to say, hey, I need more time, or I need a larger budget, or I need a larger team, or not. It don't even always have to be about asking for more, but it is just about communicating. All right, I think the brief that we got, we're gonna have to make some adjustments just based on what the weather. There's some inclement weather, so here what I think we should move to a studio, and we can make some adjustments here. Problem solving and communication is also where you can show authority and competence. And these are the things that will help clients to respect you. You communicate, you're direct, you have an idea of what you're doing, and you have the ability to problem solve, and the client can know whether something is going right or wrong. They can rely on you to communicate with them. And that's my piece. I definitely want to hear back from you guys on the community. Can definitely have a whole nother podcast where we talk about how clients go wrong. But if there is something that I'm going to want to fix, I'm going to want to make sure that my side, you guys are my side. I want to make sure that you guys are in a position to level up quicker than I put them in a position to level up, because I don't want my side to be outed on a technicality. So that's episode 4 of a One Par podcast. Again, looking for some feedback in terms of who you guys would like to see as guests. So make use of the comment sections on the different platforms where you get your podcast from. And you don't know, continue to bless up yourself.